Okay, we are now live. Yay, it worked. All right, I'm Alicia Medlin with 5 Elements of Wholeness, and I am here today with my amazing friend, Gina. She and I have known each other for a few years now, and she just brings so much light and joy into any room that she is in. And she is the founder of Divine by Design Women's Retreat, and she's a personal coach. She has put together and hosted many Divine by Design Women's Retreats and continues to inspire and bring women together through her retreats. And Gina teaches and empowers others to put together their own retreats. She has spoken in many different arenas, speaking to high school students, women, teens, and grade school students and parents. Gina inspires and empowers women and teens to see the strength and power within them to reach for their goals and live on purpose. She is also a speaker trainer, helping women to discover and speak their purpose. Her genuine and authentic nature ignites passion and purpose in all who she works with, which I am a total witness of that. I just did her speaking training this year, and it was incredible. So I'm going to turn the time over to you, Gina, to introduce what you're going to talk about, and we can go from there.
All right. So thank you so much, Alicia, for having me. And I'm super excited. So when you asked me to teach on authenticity, I was like, why? What in the world? How the heck do I teach it? I just do it, you know? And I realized throughout this process of like this year has been like an awakening of my authenticity, because there's been a lot of things that I've been doing that just didn't really align with who I am and who I was created to be. And I think that's like one of the biggest parts of being authentic. We have to get in alignment, and we really have to figure out who we are and who we were created to be. So many of us are living our lives of, oh, well, my mom wants me to be this type of person, or my husband wants me to be this type of person, or my boss needs me to be this type of person. And so we're trying to fit everybody's molds, and we're not fitting our own mold. And we were created for a specific thing. We were created for a specific reason, in a very divine, unique way, with divine traits, divine gifts. And one of the thoughts that I had in preparation of thinking about authenticity, and I thought of it as a gift. This is my own interpretation, okay, and my own thoughts, but I think that living authentically is a spiritual gift. And it's a gift that we can all develop, because we all have that ability to uncover who we are, who we were created to be, and really move forward and really be who we were created to be. There's specific people that we were meant to influence, we were meant to touch, and we're all on this journey together. So today, it's my hope that I can inspire someone to be able to see who they are being and who they are not being, and who they were created to be. So that's my hope and my desire, to help everyone to become who they were authentically created to be.
I love it. Thank you. Well, what would you suggest would be the first place for people to look to see whether or not they're being authentic?
Honestly, it's the mirror. You know, you have to look in the mirror and have a conversation with yourself. You know, if you're not comfortable looking yourself in the mirror, just sit there with yourself, get into a quiet space, get into a still space, and really ask yourself, who am I? Who was I created to be? For me, my higher power is God. So I ask God, who did you create me to be? Who am I supposed to be? And who am I? When we get in tune with ourselves and really listen. So I'm diverging just a little bit, sorry. But when we ask ourselves, it's really a good idea and really important to have a journal next to you, or have a notebook, you'll get information when you ask yourself, who am I? And really get down deep into that. Who am I? For me, that actually took many, many years to figure out. And just a little quick story for those that aren't familiar. I found out 2 weeks before I got married that I had a different father. So my mom had had an affair, and ta-da, here I am. But when I found out, I actually started beating myself up, thinking, oh, well, you're just the product of something that somebody did wrong. You know, you're just this and you're terrible. And I would really beat myself up. So I had to figure out really who I was and why why I was created the way I was created. And through that process of, oh goodness, 16 years, because I was looking for my father through that whole 16 years. And so I was being changed into who I was created to be, and I was being transformed. I was able to look at all of those life experiences and figure out, oh, you know what, I can be who I was created to be and be comfortable in that. And I remember growing up, my mom, she was so funny. And I never understood why, but she would tell me, she's like, your father and I love you very much. And one day, like kids especially are always trying to figure out who they are because they're trying to be like somebody else. So they try that on like a shoe for a little bit, and then they go on to try another one. I had a friend, and one Sunday she was talking to her dad. She called him father. I'm like, I've never called my dad father before. I'll try it on. So after church, I went home and I had said father to my dad, and my mom came unglued. She's like, he is not your father, he is your dad. I'm like, aren't those the same thing? So it took me years to figure out, oh, now I get it. My mom was always having this separation and this distinction for me. She was teaching me that there was a difference. For me, for some people, it's not. But for me, there was a difference. And I learned to love both beings. And so when I actually did find my father, I was able to love him for who he was and love my dad still for who he was. But it's just really interesting. But you have to really get down deep and ask yourself, who am I? And be willing to go through the yuck to get to it.
I love that. And Gina, I'm just going to take a pause for a minute. And those that are listening, please leave comments on our Facebook page, or also if you're live with us on on Zoom, you're welcome to use the comment link below and the chat box and leave questions if you have questions along the way. I just want people to know that they can interact with us. It's not just between us two. And I can relate to you as far as learning and taking a long time learning how to see the truth of who I am. And I remember doing that strategy that you talked about and sitting down, and I remember being invited by my coach to go look in the mirror, and that was like not even possible. 90% of the time I took a shower with the lights off. I did not turn lights on to go into the bathroom because I did not want to see the mirror. And I learned really quickly how to navigate in darkness. And that's not just, literally, but metaphorically too. And it took a long, long time for me to finally even be okay with even asking that question of who am I? And some of you may be out there that are in that space where you're like, you can't even look at yourself. And for me, what it required me to do, because when I asked that question, there was nothing good that came to my mind at all. It was all negative. And before I share what I did, what would be some of the suggestions that you would suggest for those that do get bombarded with all that negative self-talk, and trying in that process of trying to get that question to the answer to that question?
One of the things that I did, because we do get bombarded by negative talk, like I said when I found out about my father, I had all this negative self-talk, and it was really hard. So one thing that I did was I asked people that I trusted, who do you think I am? What good qualities do you see in me? And as I got feedback from them, they would share good qualities that they see in me. Then I was able to say, okay, um, I might have nice eyes. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a quality that I have. I hated it. My chin, I have a little dimple chin right here. I hated it all of my life. And when I found my father, I found out, oh, that's from him. That was from him, but I hated it. And I couldn't get to the point where I liked it until I saw from somebody else, this is why you have this. So ask somebody that you trust. Usually your mom is a good person to start with, or your spouse. What good qualities do you see in me? And I know you can post on Facebook, ask your friends, what good qualities do you see in me? And then you get that list of qualities, write them down, and then say, oh, that might be a good quality. You can get to this point where that might be.
Mm-hmm.
You open up to the idea that could be a possibility, but you don't have to completely accept it all at once. It's okay. It's okay to still feel kind of cruddy about yourself while you're getting through. When you clean your room, it doesn't just magically get clean. It has to get messy before it gets clean, right?
Right.
That's what we're going to be doing. We're completely deep cleaning. So we're going to make a mess. And just open up to the possibility of there might be something good in your life and something good about you.
I love that. I know the first thing that I could hang on to was my eyes, because I did like my eyes. I loved the way my eyes looked. I loved the color of my eyes. And that was something that I could hang on to, and trust that that was a good quality. Even though it was a superficial quality, it's still, it opened up that door. Excuse me. It opened up the door to allow myself to be okay with just one thing, and then I could go into two things and gradually grow that up. One of the processes that I've done, and I know you've done this too, is I would capture all of those negative self-talk, and I had so many those notebooks, the 70-page notebooks. So I had over 15 of those filled front and back in 2-week period of nothing but negative self-talk. And there was nothing that was repeated. It was just constant. And it absolutely shocked me because I didn't realize that there was that much negative self-talk about, that I had gone on and on and on and saying about myself on a regular basis. And so capturing it, what that does is it brings you to the awareness of what really is going on. And then you have the option to use your agency of either choosing to believe it or choosing not to believe it. And I think that's a huge, huge step to cleaning up all of that negative self-talk, because if you're so full of negative self-talk, you have no room for something good like your good qualities or even seeing your good qualities.
Oh yeah, that's getting the room messy,
Yes.
Getting everything out into the open. And it's not that you have to share all of your bad qualities, all the bad things that you see on social media. You don't have to do that. We don't want all of the yuck. But capturing it, giving it physical substance on paper is so important. Like I could pull it out, but I have a black journal that I write all of my negative thoughts. And I found that when I do, it took me a while, but when I do write down all of the negative things, the negative self-talk, then I'm flooded with ideas. But when I started my black journal, just all of these negative things came up. I thought, okay, I'll just write like 5 things, 5 negative thoughts. But then it's almost like this crowd of negative yuck came in, and I just kept going. and kept going and wrote so many negative things. But getting that room messy is super important to getting it really clean. You know?
Yeah. What do you do when, excuse me, what do you do with when the feeling of overwhelm shows up? Like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. Like this room is more than just messy. It's like piled high. Like, what do you do to navigate through that?
So, one, I breathe.
Yeah, we often forget to do that, don't we?
We do. I don't know about you, but like when I'm overwhelmed, I find that my breathing is really shallow and really fast. And it's like, hang on, breathe. Because
Mm-hmm.
your mind your body does not have the oxygen. It's not getting the oxygen it needs. So you've got to breathe, first of all, so that you can start thinking properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then just find one thing, one section to focus on of, if it's a quality that you don't like on your face, okay, what thing can I clean up? I used to, like I said, I used to hate this chin, and I wrote about it. And I'm like, okay, how can I love my chin? And I would actually write a letter to my body and ask my chin, what message do you have for me? How can I love you more? Or how can I like you? Or how can I just not hate you?
How can I just deal with you?
Yes, there's like, we don't have to go from hating and detesting to loving automatically.
Right.
There's a process. We can gradually, like I said, open up to the idea of, this chin is actually pretty cool. And it
I
is.
love
I
that.
love it now.
Yeah. So part of your personality. I love it. Yes. And when you move, I know that when I move through all of that crud and all of that pile of stuff and get to the point where it starts to become manageable. I don't know about you, but for me, I got to the point where it was almost like I had to then hold on to it, because it's like, if I'm letting this go, then I'm nothing, because it had been so part of my identity for so long. And I don't know, have you ever experienced something like that where you've had it for so long and then you go let it go and you're like, wait, if I let this go, I'm like empty. Nothing left.
Yeah, that's a little more nice than my thought. Because my thought was, if I let this go, I'm going to die.
Well, I've had
It's
that
who
too.
I am. It's who I am. But, oh goodness, I just had a thought. Where did it go? So when I do clear out things, another step in my process of clearing out, I fill that space in with good stuff or stuff that I want. I create a story of the outcome that I want. So when I'm clearing out all of this stuff, like this negative stuff about me as Gina, I clear out all of this negative stuff. And then I go to, what I found is really helpful is I go to the 4-year-old me, because the 4-year-old me has all the answers and has that creative, pure space. So I go to the 4-year-old me and I ask, okay, what's your story, little 4-year-old Gina? What's your story? What do you want out of life? What do you want to be when you grow up? And when I go to that little 4-year-old me, then I can create a story of, this is what I want my life to look like. And I can fill in that space that was just cleaned out of junk. I can fill in that space with innocent, pure love and intention of the younger me. Every one of us has a younger self inside of us. We have a teenage self inside of us, the rebellious part, or the sassy part.
I don't know if that part's ever got away, but yeah.
Yeah, I know with my kids, I can get really sassy.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, and I love that because, there's so many times when we taken that negative and made it so much a part of us and our identity. And as we start to clean out the counterfeit, the garbage, all of that stuff that isn't our truth, it can get scary, and it can get to the point where you're like, well, if all of this is going, then what's left? Like, how do I, replace it? And so I love how you're saying, you can replace it with, your good qualities, replace it with a good story, replace it with what you really want, what you would like to emulate, and what you would like to step into. And I know that for me, creating a story was fun because it was where I could step out of all of my pain and step into what I really wanted. And that was a space where it was safe for me. And I loved being in that space. So I often created a lot of different stories. They weren't the same story, but I had a lot of different stories, and they were all good stories. And it was just interesting to see which one I really desired to want and step into, because all the other stories were, more like fairy tale stories. And then when I was able to get all of that out, I was able to really write down, what I really desired. And it came from a place of love and purity, rather than, the wishful and the fairy tale mindsets that sometimes us women like to go into, like the romantic fairy tales, right? Of just come and whisk and take me away. And instead I was able to create that story of what I really wanted to be and how I wanted to show up in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you do create that story, then you can really unlock who you are and who you're created to be. And yeah, there's fairy tale stuff, and that's okay. It's okay if we create this amazing fairy tale, but making sure that we don't create this soap opera,
With all the
because
drama.
soap operas are just filled with drama. I remember my mom would watch soap operas all the time. I'm like, why is your life not that interesting? But sometimes they use that as an escape. But there are a lot of better things that you can do to escape. But writing your story is really an amazing tool, and you uncover more layers of you, and you uncover layers of the authentic you as you write these stories. And then you can bring people into your stories of who you want to influence and who you want to get a message to, or who you want to be surrounded with. I know my brother used to hang around with the wrong kinds of crowds, and until he decided to change his story and change his perception of who he is, then he just kept attracting those bad influences. Mm-hmm. And when we change our story, we can start attracting the goodness.
I love that. That's so true. So I know for me, I remember in my journey, I remember hearing the word authenticity, and oftentimes I struggled with even understanding what that looked like, or even what, I mean, like I got what it meant, but I didn't know what that meant for me and what that looked like. So could you share what you learned, and how did you decide, or how did you figure out, I guess, what was the difference between living authenticity, living in authenticity, versus just living the day-to-day lives that like a lot of us do?
So living authentically is how do I say it? Okay. So the difference between just regular living and living authentically in our everyday lives, I have 5 boys, and 2 of them are still at home, and then one of them lives at home and goes to work, and then he comes home. So technically 3 at home. I don't know. But anyway, I've got kids everywhere. But they all have needs, and they all need me to show up in a different way. And my husband needs me to show up in a different way. He doesn't need me to be telling him, okay, take out the trash, get the dishes done, clean up your room, that kind of thing. But we show up as all of these different people and in different ways, but how we show up for us and finding our purpose is a key thing. And so um, when I show up each day, I ask myself, what do I need to do to show up for me today? And showing up for self is one way that you can be that authentic self and be you. You know, you're always wearing your hat. And you have all of these other hats. You have a speaker hat, you have a teacher hat, you have a mom hat. And I'm homeschooling my youngest this year. And so I have a teacher hat, you know, and I have a mom hat. And so I have to balance all of these. But at the end of the day, I still have me and I still have my mission and my purpose. And as long as I'm living my purpose and showing up as the being that God created me to be, then it gives my children permission to do the same.
I love that. So true. Abigail has a question. She says, what is a good way to do the write your story with your kids, especially the little ones?
Oh goodness, asking your little ones to write a story, um, record it. Don't have them necessarily write it, but record it, because then they can just do whatever. When we write something, we're always worried about punctuation or spelling or grammar, or when you're typing it, that little line comes up, or that little paperclip guy saying, "Hey, you're doing this wrong." Record it.
I don't think I've
And
seen that paperclip guy in a long time.
I know, he pops up and I'm like, go away.
That's funny.
But recording it, getting a voice recorder or recording it on your phone, and you ask them, okay, what would you like? And when a little child tells a story, or even when you try to tell your story as a 4-year-old, you would say, I'm Gina Hallam, and my story goes like this. And some of the questions that you can ask: what do you desire? What do you dream of being? Not what you want. So there's a difference between desire and want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of those words, one of my thoughts of what do you want, that's like making a Christmas list that you're never going to get. You're not going to get it. If you ask, what do I desire? Desire comes from deep within the soul and deep within the heart. Want is more like a superficial thing. But what do you dream of? Because kids don't understand desire yet, but asking them, what do you dream of? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be right now? Who do you want to be? And asking those questions, and just record them. Just have an interview with them, ask them, what do you want to be? What do you picture yourself doing? What do you see yourself doing when you grow up? Abigail, I know some of her kids, and I'm like, oh gosh, we could really, really have fun. And like her little 3-year-old Noah, oh my gosh, I love that little guy. He could, I'm sure, tell a lot of really good stories. And so can some of her other kids. It's like, yeah. Story time, just record it.
Oh yeah, and recording is a great way to do it. It's even a great way to record when they're getting rid of the negative too. I've done that with my kids. My youngest, my baby, she has never known me not being a mentor. And so she has grown up with all of these tools, like from the time she was in my stomach, right? So she's never not known it. And it's funny because I asked her, like when she was probably 3.5, 4 years old, her story, and she just got a piece of paper out and she just started drawing. And I still have all of these. She had like 7 or 8 pieces of paper. To me, they were just scribbles, but to her, she's just telling the story of how she's going to go there and she's going to do that. And it is just a beautiful process. So that's, if your child really likes to create and draw, color, whatever, that's another really good way to get their creative juices going and get their little spirit growing into their authenticity as well.
Absolutely.
And I actually think that our kids are born into their divine authenticity. It's us as parents that take them out because we're trying to mold them into a certain way or thinking a certain way or to do a certain way. It's been a very interesting dynamic for me in my life because I have an 18-year-old and I have an 8-year-old, and then I have kids in between. And my 18-year-old, he didn't even know what a mentor was until he was like 10 years old when I started working on myself and doing personal development. But by then he, we still worked on him, but I didn't work on him as much as I wished I could have, because I was still trying to do me, and trying to go outside of me was a very difficult thing at that time. But it's still fascinating because even with your older children, if you've never taught them these kind of tools or never had these kind of tools, and you begin to do that, it is absolutely incredible what it does to our children. And we don't have to say a single thing about it, because as we let go of what is keeping us from stepping into our authenticity, like you said earlier, it automatically gives our husband and our children permission to do the same thing.
Yep. So I know we've all grown up with hearing usually our parents, why can't you be like so and so? Why can't you be like so and so? And I think that is the most damaging thing that we can say to our children, because for me, I grew up with a sister and a brother. And I would always hear, well, why can't you be like her? Why can't you be like him? And then I would hear also, well, why can't you be like Gina? But that takes away the permission to be who they were created to be. My brother can't be me. He wasn't created that way. He doesn't have the same qualities, like spiritual qualities or social qualities. It's him,
Right.
He's a different soul and a different being. But I wanted to go back and touch on the releasing stuff and getting rid of junk. I don't know about you, but I suck. And in that description of I suck, I'm like a vacuum cleaner. I can go into a room and take all of everybody's negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an amazing gift, but what do I do with it? So helping people to know how to let go of junk that's not theirs is a critical thing. And knowing how to get rid of junk that's not mine. Because I can do all of the work on myself, but if I don't know how to get rid of other people's junk that I've taken from them, or that, just energetically.
You've accepted or integrated into yourself.
Yeah. So one really cool thing, instead of just writing down all of those thoughts, because they're not mine, they're somebody else's, I get crayons out or colored pencils or markers and paper. And I draw and I picture what it looks like. I've gotten rid of a lot of stuff that looks just like black ink blots. But when we can just capture it and get rid of it, because we don't have to filter it through and process it, we just have to get rid of it.
Right.
I know how to get rid of it. Just drawing, getting the crayons out, drawing it, giving it color, giving it substance, and then just throw it away.
Yep.
And
I love that.
Yeah, and then you can just get rid of all of that, because that doesn't take much time at all. And even our kids, they suck in a lot of stuff that we give them.
Yep.
All of our negative junk, sometimes we spill over into our kids, and they can do the same thing. If they're frustrated, give them some crayons, give them some paper, and say, okay, what are you feeling right now? Color it, draw it. And when they create that picture, you can get rid of it. And then here's the biggest thing with those kiddos: when they let go of all of that stuff, give them a hug. Hug them for a minute. One of my coach friends, we have a coach Facebook messenger group where we all still kind of mentor each other. One of my friends, she was talking about, she had shared a story about a mom and her son was having a really difficult time. And she asked him, she says, can I give you a 1-minute hug? 1 minute, 60 seconds. And he said, yeah, I guess. And she said, you have to commit for the 60 seconds, the full time. And so he did, and they hugged. And as the time kept going, she was counting down and she was watching the clock. And about 20 seconds in, his squeeze got tighter. And then, of course, the emotions flow and your eyes start leaking. But that hug from that experience was about 70 seconds. But it changed that little boy's day.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, melted all of the stuff. So.
Oh, I love that. That is so true. I've done that so many times with my kids, even my 18-year-old, even my teenage boy who's getting ready to go on a mission. And that it's interesting because when they get older, they get to the point where they're just kind of like, I don't really need you, mom, kind of attitude. And the other day he came into my space and he's like, just stands there. And I was like, do you need anything? No. He just stands there. And I'm like, this is odd. Okay. And I just asked, I was like, Heavenly Father, what does he need? And the Spirit just came to me so strongly that he just needs his mama. He just needs his arm. He needs to be held like a little boy again. And it was so funny because this kid is 6'4", almost 6'5", 240 pounds, big kid, right? I'm 5'9". And I'm sitting on the couch and I was like, come here. And he comes over and I have him sit on my lap and I just cradled him and he melted into me. And, my legs were dying and everything. But at the same time, he was just in that space where he just needed to be a child again. Does that make sense? And it was really fascinating because after probably about 5 minutes of it, he was like, okay, I'm done now. And I'm like, well, did you want to talk about anything? He's like, no, I feel good now. I was just like, okay. But, I didn't find out till a few days later that he had a really hard day at school. But it was just, it's interesting because when we open that door for our children to release emotions in that space, and they know that we're a space of safety and no judgment whatsoever, they don't even know what they really need. They just know they need mom. And when we can show up in that space for them, in our true authentic space, it gives them permission to do the same thing, no matter how old they are.
And I bet that you needed that too.
Oh, yeah. Of course. I always see my babies.
We still need to hold our babies. We still need to hug them. I have a son who left, let's see, today's the 9th. 2 days from now is his 1 year out.
Oh, yeah, and I remember this.
I haven't had a hug from that baby in a year. And my soul longs to hug that child.
Oh, yeah.
But, he was still like, Mom. And I told him, I'm like, you're going to miss this. And he's like, I'm not. and so now I hear him, I'm just hugging you. I told you.
That's so sweet.
So, yeah, take every opportunity that you can to just soak in your kids and just be you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be Superwoman or anything.
That's true. And it, I know from my own experience in my growth as a mother, I spent my 2 older kids most of their life when they were young. I was more worried about having a clean house and spotless furniture and, clean dishes and everything in its order, that I missed out a lot of playtime and a lot of opportunity to really be in my divine authenticity, because I was so focused on what everybody else thought and judged me as a mother that I had misplaced my role as a mother into this counterfeit of lies and facades to prove my worth and value to everybody else, when really my only role was to step up and show and be there at 100% for my kids at that time. And so what about the house? So what about, everything else? Because it's just a moment. And it's interesting because my two younger kids, I've changed, like, how you just grow up, right? You get out of that, you get out of your head and you grow up and you become who God created you to become. The more you step into your authenticity, the more you choose to show up for yourself and show up for God. And I think that's the key, at least in my experience, to stepping into authenticity, is to let go of what everybody else thinks, let go of all of the expectations and conditions, and just truly step into who God wants you to be, and showing up for God and showing up for our family in the best person that we could possibly be, without worrying about the judgment or the criticism or the condemning or whatever else shows up, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Like this year, and I think it started probably in September last year. I was constantly going to Utah, constantly. Most of my friends thought I lived in Utah. I think some of them still do. But I was constantly going to trainings. I was constantly, like, I had speaking arrangements, speaking engagements. I had a retreat that I was working on. But then one Sunday when I was at church, during that reverent time that you're supposed to be really reverent, I have this amazing relationship with my angels, and they seem to come in like bounding into my space during the most quiet times when I'm supposed to be focusing. And they're like, wait a minute, we got some news to tell you. And I was told, cancel this retreat. And it was a business and entrepreneurs type of retreat. But the message that I was told was that I needed to focus on my family. And so as I began to let go of what I thought I was supposed to be doing and be being, that's a word, right? It
Yeah,
is. It's a
it
phrase
is.
now. It's a phrase now. I made it.
It's a baby being.
But when we let go of those expectations for ourselves and what we think that other people are expecting of us, then we can show up more authentically for our family. And as I did that, I was able to develop a better relationship with my children. And I don't regret any of the time that I gave up my business and my like showing up for other people, because I showed up for my family, and my family is number one, after God. I show
Right.
up for God and Christ, but then my family is right there,
Mm-hmm.
and other people come next. But as I was letting go of these things, then I was able to better understand and realize, oh, this is who I really am. I've always wanted to be a mom, always. If somebody asked me when I was little, I always wanted to be a mom. I always played house and just being there with my kids. And that time is so fleeting.
Mm.
I don't want my kids to see me as somebody else, somebody fake.
Mm-hmm.
I can spot fake from a mile away, and I just don't like it. I don't do
Mm-hmm.
it. So why
So
would I give my
what
kids
is
that?
your, what do you see, like when you see somebody who wants to step into authenticity, what's the first thing that you have them look at in order for them to recognize in themselves whether they're being authentic or whether they're staying in the facades?
I think really asking them how it feels. For me, when I'm not being authentic to me, it just feels, for me, it feels sticky and icky. And those are the
Feels
words
off.
that I use. It just feels like kind of weird, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm being authentic, I don't have to like worry about anything. I don't have to worry about who likes me or who's gonna listen to my message or who's gonna follow me on Facebook or all of this. But when I'm not being authentic to me, it just feels really weird. I remember I was at girls camp. It was like my very first girls camp. So I was 12 years old, trying to figure out who I was and trying to fit in with people. And for our skit, we did the newlywed game show. And so the person that I got was I'm a grump. And so I was supposed to be grumpy. Can you see me as grumpy? I mean, really, it's like, how do I do this? But then there was somebody else that was Miss Bubbly. I'm like, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting there trying to be grumpy with a smile on my face and being bubbly. It just felt wrong. It felt weird.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't feel natural. So when you are trying to decipher and figure out, okay, is this me being authentic or am I being like somebody else wants me to be?
Who am
And
I pleasing? Am
mm-hmm,
I pleasing God, or am I trying to please my neighbor or my family or
yeah,
my friends? Or,
yeah.
yeah,
When
definitely.
when we are trying to please other people, then it's not authentic to us.
Mm-mm.
The only one that really would be authentic to us is trying to please Heavenly Father because He knows who we are and He wants us to figure out who we are and live who we are.
Right.
And so when we are trying to please Heavenly Father, then we can align ourselves with who we really are. It may feel really sticky and weird at the beginning to be authentic, but checking in of asking, okay, Heavenly Father, is this the right thing for me? Is this the direction I should be going? And when you have that peace and you feel, yeah, this is the way to go. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while, but keep going, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And that's really important to
I
check in.
love that. That's so true. I remember I had an experience similar to yours. I went to a training for public speaking, and they wanted us to portray different characters in a in different things. And I was just like, and I was told to play the Grinch. That did not go. Like, I did that over and over and over again, and it actually got to the point where I was bawling my eyes out because I couldn't step into that vindictive and that like vicious mindset. And it was just right after my divorce when this happened, and so it was bringing up a lot of emotions. And it was so interesting because I finally realized that my authenticity can't even pretend. Like, it can't even like be goofy in a way that is not authentically me. And it is very well, I walked away with that going, I could never be an actor. It's just like, I can't pretend. I am so bad at it. And it was really fascinating to me because I look at the people around me, and I know a lot of people that are in that space of vindictiveness or that space of trying to hustle to prove their worthiness and their approval, and they're seeking for approval, and they're doing things that go against their true nature to get a recognition, or to get atta girls or atta boys or whatever. And then they wonder why they feel so off, and why they feel like things aren't working out, and they feel so miserable. And it's because they are living in those lies and those facades and those pretenses, versus just letting it go and choosing to fall flat on your face if you have to, or just have emotion or be emotional or whatever that looks like for your authenticity. And that's good. Like, that is what I've learned, is that if you cry at sappy movies, that's okay. Like, it doesn't deter you. It doesn't make you less than. And does this make sense? Like,
Yep.
it's just not, when we step into that space of trying to be like everybody else, or trying to please the people around us so that we can get whatever it is that we're looking for, it really steps us out of alignment and creates so much distortion and so much counterfeit relationships. And And it just gets really messy. Like you said, it's really messy. And it's not just on the inside, it's on the outside too. Like your relationships get messy, your finances get messy, everything gets messy when we are not choosing into authenticity.
It's exhausting too. Like
So much.
when you're not being you, it's like it takes every ounce of energy and brain space. So when you're being authentic, you have that energy, you have that brain space, and you have that clarity.
Mm-hmm.
But I had some of the same kind of experiences with like trying to act a different part. I remember at one of the last speaker trainings that I did, and I know I did this with you guys in our speaker training, we talked about like the 4 types of personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were supposed to go around and introduce ourselves as the other personalities that we weren't. So one of them, I'm so not a strategist. I'm not like a numbers person. I love taxes and stuff, and I love doing taxes, but I'm not this rigid, focusing on the facts kind of person. And so I would try to introduce myself like that. Like, I just laughed. Like, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I just can't. Like, it's me. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do that part because it took so much energy to be that type of person and to speak in that way. I know how to connect with them, but like speaking, introducing myself and talking about my interests and stuff, yeah, it just
doesn't work, huh? I totally agree. But I know a lot of people that have never even experienced authenticity. They've lived their entire lives in the facades and the pretenses and the expectations and conditions, and they don't even know what that looks like. They don't even know how to begin to start stepping into authenticity. And so I think what we shared at the very beginning is a really good way, a first step to really cleaning up and seeing what is authenticity for myself. What is a way that I can decipher whether I'm living in my truth or I'm not. For me, authenticity was not an easy thing for me to figure out. Like,
yeah.
Because I had spent all of my life trying to be somebody else. Even as a little girl, I was told, you want to be like mommy, right? You're going to be like mommy, right? So like, I didn't even have a clue what I was supposed to do. I just know I never could measure up to being who somebody else wanted me to be. And then when I got married, it was the same way. Like, it's always trying to prove to be somebody I wasn't to make the other person happy. And so learning how to step into authenticity was really hard for me. And it felt very uncomfortable because I didn't know. Like, I didn't know if what I thought was authenticity was really authenticity or just another facade. Mm-hmm. Because it was so not familiar. It was not a place that I had ever even ventured before. And so for the first little while, and I'm sharing this with you because I know for the first little while, it's going to be so much easier to go back to old and stepping into old because it's so uncomfortable and it feels so just like something's crawling in your skin. Because it's almost like you're trying to pretend to be somebody you're not, even though you really are stepping into who you are, and all your life you're pretending to be something you're not.
Yep.
And so I just want to let you know, be really patient with yourself, have lots of grace, give yourself lots and lots of patience, and have that support system. Have somebody that you can call and say, hey, can you remind me why I'm doing this again? Like, why am I wanting to step into authenticity? Because it doesn't feel good. And as you continue to do it over and over, it will become more natural. And then pretty soon your body's going to want that versus the old.
Yeah, it is going to be really uncomfortable. And it takes time and it takes processes. Like, we shared just one process. And there's
many.
Like multiple different processes. I do have I have a 5-day challenge where we talk about 5 of the tools to step into your authenticity. And there's that support there. Having that support and having that team is so, so important, because it's going to take work. It's going to take uncovering a lot of yuck and getting really uncomfortable to finally realize, oh, this really is who I am. And man, it's going to feel like, this is really funny. It's going to feel like you're sitting in a hot tub. When you get into that authenticity, it's like, oh,
it's like,
yes,
oh, finally,
this is where I belong.
Yeah.
It's like finding that custom fit shoe that just feels amazing. And when we uncover our authenticity, magical things happen, because we allow other people then to live in their authenticity. I had a friend tell me a few years ago, when I started doing a lot of self-work, she's like, "You've changed, and I don't really like it." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really sad." And I just kind of left it at that. And then I realized, you know what? Some people are going to just naturally go out of your life. It's not that you don't love them anymore, and it's not that you're not friends anymore, but that part of your life is not in alignment. And it's going to hurt, because you're going to have friends that you used to, always do stuff with, that were like sisters, but then it's just not in alignment with who you are. But it's okay, because you can still be a light to them along their path. You can still be friends, and it's not like they're, going away forever, but you become a light to them to be able to stand in their truth and who they were created to be.
Oh, I love that.
And
so true.
I know Tiffany Peterson, she's inspirational.
Like,
she's amazing.
She is, totally.
One of the things that she says, she's like, some will, some won't, so what? And that's really what it comes down to with living in your authenticity. Some people will like you, some people won't like you. So what?
Yeah.
And it's okay, because you weren't sent here, you weren't created to make everybody like you. You were sent here to attract certain people. You were sent here with a certain purpose and a divine purpose, a divine role with divine characteristics that make you you. And you have something amazing to offer this planet.
So, oh, I love that. Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you to do this challenge?
So you can find me on Divine by Design Women's Retreats, or through my Facebook, Gina Downing Hallam. And the 5-day challenge starts next Monday. And we'll be talking each day about different tools that you can use, and even how to get rid of the junk, and also creating your own story. We'll walk through the process of creating your own story, getting rid of limiting beliefs and old belief patterns of, oh, well, my mom says I'm supposed to be this type of person. So we're going to work through those things and get rid of them and clear out and clean up and clean up our space.
Yay!
Yeah. So, and it's a completely free challenge for these first 5 days. And it's going to be an incredible opportunity for you to unlock your authenticity and have that team, that tribe of women who are living authentically and have that safe space to be.
Oh, I love that. Awesome, Gina. Well, I will also put the information in our post as well. And I wanted to let you know that I do now have a new assessment process where you can go in and take an assessment and find out exactly what is keeping you from stepping into your truth and your authenticity in all 5 elements: your mental, your emotional, your physical, and your spiritual, as well as energetic, so that you can get that personalized roadmap of how to move through each one of those elements and clean up what's blocking you and keeping you stuck. So look for that as well, because that will be in the comments too. And thank you everybody who has joined us. And we have just thoroughly enjoyed having Gina on today and being able to bring more light and joy into your life. If you guys have any questions, if you watch this later and you have questions, please leave it in the comments and both of us will be notified. If you have personal questions that you don't want the group to see, please go ahead. You're welcome to message me or message Gina. And I will also put our links in the comment section as well. So Gina, thank you so much for showing up and being so authentically you. I just love you. And everybody, thank you so much for this showing up, and you guys have a fantastic day.